The iron stove door clicked shut behind me, and the sound seemed louder than it should have in our small kitchen. My wife stood with one hand resting on the edge of the table. The bread dough was still beneath a linen cloth, the lamp was burning low, and she had just said one word to me. No. Not sharply, not disrespectfully, just plainly. I remember the heat rising in my face before I even understood why. I had grown used to being the one who made the final decision in our household. I carried the money worries. I spoke with the men about land, work, and church matters. I believed that responsibility gave me certainty. That evening, I learned it did not. My name is Jonas. I am a husband, a father, and the head of an Amish household. I share these stories because there are things a man does not understand when he first takes on a family, even when he believes he is prepared. If you have ever had to decide whether leadership means being obeyed or being willing to listen, I would be interested to know what you learned. This happened during the 7th year of our marriage. We had 3 children then, all still young enough to leave little boots in the wrong places and fingerprints on every clean window. It was late autumn. The corn had been brought in, the garden was mostly bare, and cold air came through the cracks around the mudroom door. That year had been harder than I admitted. A horse had gone lame during planting. 2 pieces of equipment needed repairs within the same month. The price I received for a load of cabinets was lower than I expected. I kept a small notebook in the workshop, and every few evenings I added the figures again, hoping the answer might change. It never did. We were not going hungry, but there was no room for waste and very little room for surprise. A man from a neighboring settlement had offered me steady work for the winter. The pay was good, better than good by the standards I knew. He built storage sheds and small barns, and he wanted me to help lead a crew. The difficulty was the distance. I would need to leave before daylight on Monday and stay near the job until Saturday afternoon. I told myself it would only be for 4 months. I also told myself I had already decided. That evening, after the children were asleep, I explained the arrangement to my wife. I spoke in the careful tone a man uses when he wants something to sound reasonable. I described the pay. I described the debt we could clear. I described the repairs we could make in spring. Then I said I would begin the following Monday. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she folded the corner of the linen cloth back over the dough and said, "No, Jonas, I cannot carry this house alone all winter." That was the first time I remember hearing a firm no from her after I had announced a decision. I did not shout. In our home, shouting was not common. But a man can make a room cold without raising his voice. I asked whether she understood what the work would pay. She said she did. I reminded her that I was responsible for providing. She said, "You are responsible for more than money." That sentence struck deeper than I wanted it to. I put on my coat and went outside. The yard was hard beneath my boots. Frost had begun to silver the fence rails, and the lantern beside the barn made a small yellow circle in the dark. I walked past the horse stalls twice without doing anything useful. I was angry because I believed she had challenged my place in the family. But beneath the anger was something less respectable. Fear. I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of another repair bill. I was afraid that the other men would see what I had not managed well. The winter job felt like proof that I could still set matters right. Her refusal did not only question the job. In my mind, it questioned me. The next morning, I went to see my father. He was in his workshop sharpening a plane iron. The room smelled of pine shavings, oil, and the coffee he kept in a dented metal cup near the stove. He did not stop working when I came in. My father had a way of letting silence do the first part of a conversation. I told him about the winter work. I told him about the money. Then I told him what my wife had said. I expected him to remind me that a husband must lead his household. He did remind me of that, but not in the way I wanted. He set the plane iron down, wiped his hands on a rag, and said, "A husband does not drag his family behind his decision. He carries them inside it." That was all. He picked up the iron again. I stood there feeling as though I had brought him a complicated problem, and he had returned it to me in one sentence. On the walk home, I began remembering things I had ignored. Our youngest had been sick twice that fall. My wife had been getting up before 5 to finish sewing work for another family. Her mother's health had become uncertain, and she was making extra visits to help. One of our sons had begun waking at night, frightened by sounds in the attic. None of those things appeared in my notebook of expenses. I had calculated the cost of staying home. I had not calculated the cost of leaving. When I returned, my wife was hanging damp shirts near the stove. I wanted to defend myself one more time. I wanted to explain that my intentions were good. They were good. But good intentions can still make a poor decision. So I asked her to sit with me. At first, she remained standing. I think she expected another speech. When I told her I wanted to hear what the winter would actually look like for her, she sat down slowly. She spoke for nearly 20 minutes. That may not sound long, but when you are accustomed to preparing your reply while another person speaks, 20 minutes can feel like a great test of discipline. She told me she was already tired. She told me our oldest daughter had begun asking questions she did not know how to answer alone. She told me the boys listened differently when I corrected them than when she did. She told me she feared becoming bitter toward work that was supposed to help us. Then she said something I had not expected. She said she was not asking me to refuse the job entirely. She was asking me not to accept it in the form I had described. That changed the matter. I had heard her no as a wall. It was not a wall. It was a boundary around what our family could bear. The following day, I returned to the man who had offered the work. I told him I could give him 3 days each week, but I would not stay away overnight. The arrangement meant less money. It also meant a longer drive by buggy to the pickup point where the crew gathered. He frowned. He said he needed someone dependable. I told him I was dependable, but I was also a husband and father. He did not answer immediately. Then he agreed to try it for 1 month. The winter was still difficult. There is no lesson in this story where every problem disappears because a man listens well once. We remained careful with money. I repaired the same pair of boots twice. We used less lamp oil. My wife and I postponed buying a new kitchen table, even though one leg of the old one had to be wedged with a folded piece of leather. But I was home 4 nights each week. I helped with the children's lessons. I carried firewood before the snow became deep. When our youngest developed a fever in January, I was there to hitch the horse and take him for help. My wife did not have to stand alone in the doorway wondering when I would return. The winter work lasted 5 months instead of 4. We cleared less debt than I had first planned. Yet when spring came, our household was intact in a way I had nearly failed to protect. For years, I thought about the sentence my father gave me. A husband does not drag his family behind his decision. He carries them inside it. I understand it better now. Leadership is not the right to stop listening. It is the duty to listen longer. Because the consequences of a decision do not fall on you alone. There are times when a husband must make a final choice. I believe that. Responsibility cannot always be divided until no one carries it. But a final choice made without honest attention to the person who must live beside it is not strong leadership. It is loneliness disguised as authority. My wife's no did not weaken our marriage. My first reaction nearly did. Her refusal forced me to see the difference between being opposed and being warned. She was not trying to take my place. She was telling me something about our home that I had been too frightened and too proud to notice. The older I become, the less impressed I am by a man who always gets his way. I pay more attention to the man whose family can speak truth to him without fear. That kind of trust is not produced by demanding respect. It is built in quiet moments at a kitchen table, when a man lays down the answer he prepared and asks a better question. What am I not seeing? I still provide for my family. I still make decisions. But I no longer believe that responsibility means I must arrive at every answer alone. Sometimes the strongest thing a husband can do is allow one honest word to stop him before he leads everyone in the wrong direction. If you value stories about marriage, family, faith, and the lessons learned inside an Amish home, you are welcome to subscribe. And I would like to ask you this. When someone you love says no, do you hear rejection first, or do you stop long enough to ask what they are trying to protect?